All right, guys, so we're going to dive into NFTs 2.0, what that might look like across a lot of different projects out there that are starting to emerge in the space. And one of the things we do here on the show is we go in a little deeper on these things, look at protocols, talk to some of the creators, and really look at roadmaps of how NFTs could be running in a different way on this next bull run, but also how you might be using them in the future. It's going to be a good one. My name is Paul Barrett. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me today is Trevor Dietz, who is with McFarlane Toys, and also Bruno Škvorc, who is with RMRK. We've had we did a lot of coverage on RMRK here last week, and of course we've had McFarlane on the show before. So Trevor, welcome in. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Bruno, thanks again for stopping in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So I want to get into a couple of things to start. And one of the things that we look at, and of course you guys have probably seen, we put out a tweet on this not too long ago. If you guys didn't check out our video, make sure and do that. We did a full breakdown on what was coming kind of with this next era. Covered ECC, a lot of what RMRK was doing, and then of course got into some things that of course is happening with McFarlane in the drop. And of course that was the Batman drop coming in. I want to talk a little bit about just in general, Trevor. We'll jump to you for a second. Just first of all, I want to get into all things around Comic-Con. You guys did a lot of updates there. Give me kind of a rundown of what happened.
Yeah, so we had basically an event at San Diego Comic-Con this week that was kind of not just the culmination, not just. I mean, it's a huge event in the industry, in the collectibles industry that McFarlane Toys has been a part of for 30 years. So we always have a presence there. What's really exciting for us this year is that we got to start talking about really go into some of the exciting new partnerships and licenses that we're bringing to the digital collecting side on the digital collecting platform that we built. It was our first opportunity where we really got to share some of those, a first look at some of those collectibles, especially working with Warner Brothers and starting with DC over there, and being able to kind of show our vision of both what McFarlane Toys is well known for, which is really high quality physical collectibles at reasonable prices on the physical side, bringing that over to the digital space, and also as we're developing this larger platform that it's a part of within McFarlane Toys. What does it mean to really serve the audiences that are in this space, and those both being the core people who are into crypto, who are into NFTs, so people are already there and the expectations that they have, how do we meet or exceed their expectations, as well as we have a massive physical collecting audience. How do we get them excited about this space, and how do we show them that there's value on the digital collecting side?
Right.
And so this was really on the content side, a first look at that. And then we started some other announcements around that, around how we can start building more on the systems side to bring that audience across and get people excited on both sides.
So one thing to note is July 27th, you've got Batman Year 2, 1987 mints happening. So that's a big drop getting ready to occur with obviously with McFarlane. And we had a chance to obviously had taught on here not too long ago to really kind of break down some of the long-term strategy. How many other Web3 projects are you potentially kind of working with, and how many do you see kind of connecting in the future with McFarlane?
For us, it's about, I think there's part of it is on a tech side, are there tech providers that make sense for us to work with? I mean, we're currently working with as far as our home marketplace, we're working with Variable. We work closely with the Polygon team itself since we mint on Polygon. On the content and audience side, we've been working, looking at other people in the space. For example, there's the Palm Studio and Candy have the Bat Cowls project. It's been really exciting. They have a Bat Cowls, this Batman NFT project over there. We're doing one there. It's the perfect endemic fit audience, so it made perfect sense for us to work with them. We are consistently looking for other people in the space, and we've been talking with other projects about that. And for us, again, it's about finding the right audience and tech fits for what we're trying to build. And it also kind of speaks to a larger for us, this is getting a little more philosophical here, kind of a larger push to how do we make the space a little bit more open. I think one of the overall promises of Web3 and NFTs is kind of the end of the walled gardens around content at a very high level. And that starts with the people creating content. So for us, and the other thing is a lot of these systems aren't really in place yet. So we're figuring out how to do this, how to build this, and start kind of breaking down those barriers, because the tools and the tech to do that don't really exist yet. So we're finding ways to do it kind of within what exists or outside of what exists, so we can start moving the audience and like the community and kind of audience expectations towards that world, because then the tech will follow.
Yeah, for sure. How many at Comic-Con did you see? A lot of other Web3 projects, or were you guys one of the leaders out there? What was the climate there?
There was a fair bit of other projects on site. I will say this: there's still an element of Comic-Con, especially San Diego Comic-Con, is such a massive event, and there's so many other players vying for media attention. Also, this being a particularly weird year just because of the writers and the actors strikes that are going on. So the vibe and the feel of Comic-Con was definitely a little bit different than usual. But yeah, it was exciting. We had a presence just within Warner Brothers. We had a presence there. I believe Hero was also present at that event, and then other people like in Marvel. They had Vivi was present in the Marvel booth, and a lot of people were seeing that. So the exposure is definitely there. But for me, it's like when we talk about bringing users into the space, it's more than just awareness. It's how do you get them really down that engagement funnel? And now that they know that this exists, how do you show them that the value is there? And how do you keep re-engaging them beyond that first impression?
Well, I think this is going to be a pretty significant scenario playing out with a lot more Web3, projects. Obviously, McFarlane, one of the leaders in it, and where that might look to the future. Just the integration. We've already seen it with things like Nike and Starbucks and many others that have really started to move in this direction. I want to jump over to Bruno for a minute and get into the whole aspect of kind of this next generation of what we're going to see in the NFT space. And just jumping over to Ethereum.org, you can kind of see your name on a lot of these new protocols that are being released, of course, Bruno. So congratulations to that. I was looking at just like context-dependent multi-asset tokens. We'll talk about what that means here in a second for our audience. But a lot of others. You guys have also got parent-governed nestable non-fungible tokens. That's another one that you guys have been contributed to over on the ERC standards, which this again starts to move NFTs kind of to next generation, next level. Multi-assets, and we covered this in the show last week when we kind of talked about RMRK in general. But this one was always intriguing to me, is that NFTs are starting to become so much more dynamic. So when you look at the Equippable side of that, and Bruno, I want to kind of hear this from your mouth. What do you see as the future for these in terms of use case?
Yeah, so for me, starting this whole project was just born out of frustration with the NFT 1.0 state of things, where everything's static, or if it needs to be dynamic, it's centralized behind some sort of admin key, or a server where you can just replace the URL that points to the metadata, and then the NFT changes. I thought always that NFTs can do more. They should do more. And it's really, when you're thinking about NFTs in general, in terms of equippables, dynamic NFTs and so on, it's really not that difficult to build this sort of stuff. My background is traditional development, and this is trivial stuff to build on the kind of like a web development side. Where it gets really complicated is making sure that anything you mint using these standards that we've published is backwards compatible with everything that came before it, and forwards compatible with everything that's going to come in the future, whether you know the authors of those collections or not. And this is where the massive upgrade was. This is where the massive paradigm shift of NFTs is really important, because now, up until now, whenever you launch an NFT collection, you're kind of defaulting to a vampire attack against other NFT collections out there, which means that you're trying to get their users, their collectors, their fans, their user base. And it's a very unhealthy ecosystem in terms of like, getting it to getting some sort of collaboration going. We are expanding the universe for everybody by making everybody work together, and that's the whole point of this. Making, reducing the war between collections and projects, and just making everything work together. So this is how I see it. I see the global creator economy flourishing under this, and AAA studios, gaming studios, collection publishers realizing that they're leaving a massive pile of money on the table by ignoring cross-collection royalties that they could be collecting by selling these equippables across different collections. Yep.
So, hey, I was looking at the Canario website. This was kind of interesting. And for some of you, this might give you some more explanation of, and we did a full breakdown on what RMRK is doing, but the idea here is that each one of these are, essentially kind of multi-asset equipable for an NFT. So almost modular in a sense. And if you look at kind of the OpenSea example right here of just how 3D could play into this, how would this apply to 3D assets, Bruno? Will this work the same way in this kind of scenario?
So we have not built a 3D renderer, but that's a purely client-side thing. Anybody can build this. We have built a 2D renderer to composite SVGs on top of each other and to make these composables work that way, but they work just the same with 3D assets. And in fact, some companies, some projects are already working on this. Not necessarily, like there are some that are game-related, some that are just purely visual. Like there's a 3D studio from Italy that's pushing out amazing content by just building these 3D fully rendered equippables that work just the same. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so Trevor, I want to jump back to you on a couple of things. First of all, and the reason we had RMRK on, obviously, because there's some opportunity here with 2.0 NFTs. Maybe McFarlane will take a look, but I was looking at the Amazon site, and you look at Amazon in general. You look at all these accessories right here that could play into these McFarlane characters, and I think about that. First of all, how important are accessories for the NFT side of things for McFarlane? Obviously, we know they're very important for the physical side. Kind of give us a rundown.
I think it's a really good question. As we are continuing to expand the platform and offer more fun and build deeper functionality and how you can use and play with the collectibles, we want to bring more of that kind of stuff forward. Right now, the presence of accessories usually have to do with inside our kind of our viewer app. We have a gallery and we have all these different, more like effectively like furniture accessories that you can build and create your own custom galleries with. Actually bringing that gallery concept into the NFT, again, from a technical perspective, not too hard. It's basically, and I mean, there's like I hate to call it the Web 2 versus the Web 3 way of doing this, but like the Web 2 version is like once you own that asset. Now, we see you have that asset in our ecosystem. So now because of that, here's a suite of like all these different pieces that collectible comes with. You can like put it in his hands. You could like do whatever you want, what have you with it. That would be like the Web 2 version. I think where this gets more interesting, and I think where tying into the technology that RMRK and their team has built, as I've been looking at that, is all of those individual pieces effectively being NFT assets on their own, and that side of it inherently being tradable as well. It's one of those things where, and I also agree with him on the rendering side of it. That's almost like weirdly like the last mile problem of games and interoperable assets, which is like tracking the ownership and who owns all this stuff from one ecosystem to the other. These frameworks exist, and they're getting better and better and better for tracking the ownership and managing that. The challenge from a developer standpoint, especially ours, like where our business is largely content, is how does one asset in one environment look compared to the asset in a different environment, and how do we maintain quality across all the different environments where that asset might appear in? That is honestly I don't know if that's necessarily like something that NFTs or even blockchain solves. That's like building your assets the right way in order to like, is it built so it can be rendered in Unity or in Unreal or Octane Render or whatever your solution is, and having the NFT provide that ownership, and how can we also bring that 3D asset across? I think I would love to see more of that content, and that it'd be how much of that we can put onto the blockchain, I think could be really cool. I think I saw your reaction to that. It sounds like you guys have something in mind for that, and I would love to hear it, because that is like when we think about the problems that we run into in terms of interoperable 3D, which is like a challenge that we're trying to solve, and we're figuring out ways to do it without like a great solution yet. If you guys have that, that's the kind of thing we would get really excited about.
Hey, Bruno, you want to say something there, so go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, so ERC 5773 is developed exactly for that, to solve the age-old problem of gamers hating NFTs because you can't pull a skin from one 3D environment into another. This is exactly for that. So multi-asset NFTs are NFTs that have in one NFT different facets, different assets. And so you can put an actual literal skin file for that engine into that NFT, and then put another one that is for another engine into that same NFT. So it's not multiple NFTs. It's literally one NFT that has different outputs that are context dependent. That's the context dependent part in the ERC name, which is purposely made to sound complicated, so it sounds smarter. So you can actually put as many assets as you wish into an NFT. This can be, a 2D representation of your avatar, which is perfected to look really well on the marketplace, but then a 3D model inside that can be directly imported into Unity, a 3D model inside that is directly self-shaded for importing into Borderlands or whatever else you want to put that skin on, a voxelated version for Minecraft. You can put all of these into the same NFT, and then the end kind of consumer, the client that reads this information, is who decides which content to read. So it's like if you have like an NFT that's at the same time an audiobook and a PDF file, which is what these multi-asset NFTs enable you to do. When you load that NFT into Audible, it will just play that audio file. Whereas if you load that same NFT into Kindle, you'll just see the PDF.
Right. Okay, so and for many of you, if you have not seen our video on RMRK, we broke this down on what was really released at ETHCC last week. It's a good deep dive on where NFT 2.0 is going. So to explain, kind of support some of what Bruno just kind of explained there, the future is pretty bright here in terms of where NFT integrations are going to be going. Back to you, Trevor, and I want to talk about this, and back to kind of this Amazon shot here. Here's the physical goods over here on Amazon. You can also get these on eBay and different places. But if you jump over here to the OpenSea and McFarlane Digital, we're starting to see actual use case of this, especially around like current prices of the digital version versus the physical version. How do you see this with digital surpassing physical potentially in terms of value? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting for a couple different reasons. Part of it is, the most obvious case is if we have a physical collector and one of our big plans this year is to start having physical and digital collectibles from McFarlane Toys and retailers worldwide, basically. We have plans just in the fall for like some of those first releases to go out. And we're already seeing that digital to physical or physical to digital, you see the values changing across there. If you're a physical collector and you are going to buy that piece off the shelf, it might incidentally have the digital collectible version just kind of packed in with it. And we expect at the beginning, realistically, probably 90% of those collectors on the physical side are probably going to ignore that. But a couple of them are going to chase that down and figure out, okay, let me redeem this, get the NFT, now I own this digital collectible. They're going to be exposed to this world. I think when we talk about onboarding, a lot of times there's this idea that you have to kind of tell users, like, so far everybody's just it feels like a lot of people trying to tell new users the value of this content. And realistically, I think people, first of all, they want to be shown that value, not told it. And so this seems like a natural fit to it. And then the other thing is you have to remember that outside of this kind of NFT ecosystem, people tend to ascribe value to content based off the system and the engagement that it's a part of. Like my example would be, why does Fortnite sell so many skins? It's not inherently because the skins have value, I think, to that audience. It's because that audience values the experience that Fortnite provides, so much so that whatever it comes from, just playing the game, the social experience, the kind of on top of like pop culture as well that Fortnite tends to do. I use that as an example. Basically, the system is ascribing value to the content. If people can start seeing, if their introduction to our world is, hey, there's this system of digital and physical collecting, and we have this digital experience that's gamified, and you have you can build a digital collection and digital gallery just like you could do with the physical world. That is people seeing the system and seeing the value in it, and then obviously they're going to see the content, and hopefully that is one of the ways that we get those physical users to start seeing the value in digital content, and then by extension NFTs. So that's part of what gets us so excited about it. And then there's also the matter of like, even if you're not as interested in the space, the fact that you could go into a store, buy the piece of $40 at retail, and then, hey, I can sell this digital thing that I don't really want to get $10, $20 back. People are going to get excited about that. It just
sure. I mean, it's like a built-in rebate. Almost. I mean, if you look at it in that way. All right, so I want to get into onboarding because this is something that is a challenge, I think, for everyone. I want to jump to a clip to kind of explain this for our audience. Let's go to this clip real quick.
Think as if you're a user who has no idea about blockchain. It's called the Reddit Vault in the app. You click to claim, and again, we create a wallet for you if you don't have one, and there you have it. You can now use collectible avatars within Reddit. We onboarded over 8 million users to our wallets and to digital collectibles. We also emphasize the value that users are getting. And finally, for onboarding and owning, we integrated everything natively. If we made any of these decisions differently, I'm not convinced that we would have gotten this result.
So you saw the clip, and you saw the onboarding method there with Reddit. Very smooth, silky, excellent. How are you guys addressing both of this? We'll start with you, Bruno, from Remark's position in terms of onboarding.
Yeah, onboarding is a very tricky and sensitive issue. As an idealist, I may be swimming upstream here, where I don't necessarily think that everybody needs to become Web3 native, and catering to just trying to make everybody blockchain into a blockchain user one way or the other is maybe not something that I really see much of a point in.
Come on, Bruno.
No, really.
That's like saying everybody would not get into the internet, which there was a time when people would be that way.
I mean, with blockchain, you want them to use it for a specific purpose. If you want some provenance, if you want collectibles, of course, this matters and this is valuable. And Reddit did an excellent job there. They did a truly amazing job. However, most of those, the vast majority of those users will not convert to Web3 users. Will not convert to proper Web3 users.
Interesting.
And so I guess it depends on what your priority is, what their goal there is. If they want to convert them to Web3 users, which I doubt, then this is not going to happen. But if they just want this collectible ecosystem to thrive, and maybe later on upgrade it to make those collectibles tradable and equippables tradable and accessories and so on, then it absolutely makes sense. So they did a great job there.
Right.
But from our side, we do have great UX people on the team. We are working constantly to make it simpler. We are working on account abstraction, and we are working on gasless transactions to make it even simpler and even less painful. But blockchain, by and large, is quite painful to use still. And so there's a lot of work ahead of us. So we are doing our best. Mm-hmm. But when you're building something hyper casual like Superverses and stuff that like a metaverse that everybody can build in and interact with, that is properly decentralized, you do need to make some compromises to make that hyper casual and approachable. So we are working on this, but it's still, as of yet, a highly unsolved problem.
Yeah, I want to get to another clip here, but before we get there, because it's specific on account abstraction, you mentioned that a couple times, and I want to kind of make sure our audience can stay up with that. Trevor, I want to jump over to you because onboarding this is a big deal. McFarlane is a titan in the collectible space, primarily, obviously, in the physical. Pretty much a legend in terms of the industry. Onboarding now is a new format. It's no longer working with retailers and those kind of onboarding methods. Now you're dealing with a digital onboarding. What about your strategy? How important is that?
I think first of all, I think a lot of people, when they talk onboarding, what they immediately think in this space is accessibility. And to me, that is both, and I think Bruno spoke to it really well. Accessibility is a tech problem that needs to be solved in this space, but I also think it's only one facet of onboarding. And I think probably the biggest and most important thing that needs to be solved is more the value chain side. I think proving the value and proving the value to people who have not entered the space is really what we need to do. If you can prove that value to them, they will come over. And the reason we know that is because there's an audience that does exist here now that have decided that the value is here and it makes sense, and they've gone through the hoops to do it. We can lower the barrier to those hoops, and that might bring in a couple more people. But I think there's just as many people that we can bring in by building higher quality, higher value, higher, and I use value to kind of as an umbrella term for like when people say utility or like what have you. Basically, wherever I can, if I can use this collectible in multiple places, if I can play with it in multiple ways, if there's more stuff I can do with it, if it has some social value to me, if it has some gamified value to me, all of those add to just effectively the value chain of that asset. And at some point, that value gets high enough that it crosses that threshold where more users are going to come in. So yes, I agree that building tools to make setting up a wallet, connecting to it, purchasing with cryptocurrencies, all those kinds of things, and making that as easy and seamless or as invisible as possible, depending on the ecosystem. All of those are good, but they only solve one facet of it. It still comes back to the content needs to be really high value and serve a need that in that audience.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I want to go to the second clip real quick because this is talking about account abstraction and kind of explaining a little bit more of what Bruno is talking about. Let's go to that clip.
There are companies that actually provide this self-custodial Web2 kind of boarding, such as Sorare. They do an amazing job seamlessly. So that's still not enough. We also want the ability to port the account to multiple dApps. Account abstraction, I believe, was the missing piece to enable that experience. And the good news is that this is not theoretical. And we've released this week a product called the Web Wallet. Oh, it works. And so it really looks like a Web2 login, an experience that most users would know. And that's it. In 2 seconds, using an email and a password, you are connected. You can actually browse, go from one dApp to the other.
All right, so that right there is interesting because that good explanation of account abstraction. When you look at that technology and the advancements that we're making right now, Bruno, where do you see that going in the future of kind of this next level NFTs?
Yeah, so account abstraction is pretty crucial for making wallets much simpler to use. It is also very dangerous in its own smart contract only format. So it needs a lot of auditing, it needs a lot of work. I do like what some chains are doing with their approach to adding account abstraction on the chain level, which means at super low level. So it's literally part of the chain on which you're developing so that you don't actually have to rely on the smart contracts to provide you with this functionality. That's super cool. But in general, it's just account abstraction is just smart contracts that allow you to forward certain commands to other smart contracts, which means that they just act as a wallet for you. You just use a wallet and you forward the command along. Now, this since the smart wallet is kind of just a smart contract, this allows you to make it really, really interesting. Like, for example, have your wallet be an NFT itself. And this is enabled with, for example, our standards, where since your NFT can be a wallet, it can also contain other NFTs or even fungible tokens. And so now you can put all of that stuff into your NFT. And you can also use that NFT wallet to accrue reputation by using the chain, using various DeFi protocols, using a lot of different tools, and then accrue that reputation as so-called soulbound 2.0 NFTs inside your NFT so that they stick around forever. And you're basically building up an on-chain profile, an on-chain identity without actually revealing your identity. You're constructing an identity around merit, around use of the environment that you're a part of by using these smart NFTs, these smart wallets, smart accounts that make the experience at the same time much easier for everybody, for normies, as they're abstracted in various UIs. Right. So I'm very excited about account abstraction. I think it's going in a good direction, but there are massive challenges to solve there.
Bruno, do you think that would cause any uptake in terms of adoption, or is it one of those things that's going to grow very slowly?
Depends on who does it and how. If they abstract away the gas cost, so one of the most crucial parts, one of the most crucial UX blockers in crypto right now is the fact that in most cases you need the chain's native token to interact with the chain in any way. This can be abstracted away with account abstraction. It can be removed. It can be proxied over into another entity who takes care of the gas payments for you. Mm-hmm. And if we remove that friction from the new users that are coming in, if they can just install an application and start using a Web3 application protocol, whatever, without needing the gas, which is possible with this tech, then I think we will see a massive, massive uptick, especially if we build some interesting stuff, not more ZK chains, but maybe interesting apps, games, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, a couple of things here. We're going to get into kind of limitations and issues that could be facing the industry, along with kind of just with all great new technology. There's always going to be some challenges. One I want to get into in terms of recommendation, in terms of like just 3D assets. Where would you store them? IPFS, something like, you get into Arweave, other facilities out there. Bruno, what is your theory of best place for 3D assets?
I'm not a big believer in storage chains. I don't think they can forever grow and store your stuff forever, especially because all storage chains at launch immediately vampire attack all other existing ones. So it's a very competitive and harsh environment. This is why we don't really care about where you store the information, but we do provide you with an in-NFT way of backing that information up. So if you have a 3D asset for your NFT, you can put it into your NFT as one of the assets, the multi-asset aspect. But you can have multiple assets at the same time that point to the same thing in different places, which means that you can have your 3D model saved on IPFS, and that's one asset in your NFT. You can save that same model on a centralized server, that's another asset. And so you basically have your backups in your NFT. So we don't want to take sides in the storage wars. We just want to provide the opportunity to have decentralized backup inside of your NFT for any content that you want. But for me, it's always going to be IPFS. A protocol always beats a product. A protocol will always outlast a product, and IPFS is the protocol here.
I'm going back and forth playing on one of the spatial images, just showing some 3D use cases, but interesting within that. Trevor, I want to jump over to you. A Discord allow list. A little bit of kind of a clunky process that we're seeing play out in real time.
Oh my God, yes.
around this. So, why not use like a Web3 kind of solution here for something like that?
So part of it was, I'll say the main version was speed and just trying to get it set up, and also at the immediate time, the resources we had available to set that up. And just because we have the drop coming up. So for us, that is part of the reason that we did it through the Discord and setting up the Allowlists. And yes, it is a very Web 2 approach to it. This is something we have, and honestly, a lot of this is also, we're building the tech and we're learning from our experiences and exactly where our needs are. There was some interesting back end tech that didn't come through exactly that wasn't ready exactly where we wanted it. And we're now starting to work on that and kind of unpack that and start building it the right way for future drops. But we didn't want to move the dates of the drops that we had now. So that's part of why we ended up in this situation. It is absolutely not the ideal, and it's not where we want to go going forwards. We will, and we already have like plans for like a kind of a future, what the future of this tech stack looks like and kind of what the future of allow listing in our ecosystem looks like. So hopefully it's a lot smoother.
Sure.
Because it has been, it's been a challenge.
There we go. We're back. Yeah. It's any of these new, ventures like this, they all kind of run into these scenarios. Unpopular opinion here, and this is one that, we talk about with a lot of different NFT creators and companies, in terms of desktop app versus mobile and then Web3 evolution. And Trevor, to you, what about abandoning that process and going mobile only? I mean, we've seen other successes with that. We're seeing a lot more mobile use, and you've got all of these emerging countries that pretty much are mobile only anyway. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so we chose. So first of all, we are building a mobile app, and we're going to be coming to mobile. That is something that's in the pipeline. We will be on that platform. For us, a big part of it was honestly content and rendering. The highest quality, highest end rendering device that most people have in their home at this point is still going to be your desktop or your laptop. Those kinds of devices. And then the second one would be like a modern generation game consoles if you have those. Because we're trying to really push the quality of our assets further than anybody else really has in the space. Really, these are like truly building like AAA game quality assets. And also providing an environment where you can do AAA game quality rendering, which just at the end of the day, mobile just does not get as far yet as you can get on a PC or a Mac at this point. So that was it was largely driven from quality, and also kind of looking at a little bit of looking at who McFarlane's audience is. This tends to be a highly like IP and like IP savvy audience that has a fair amount of disposable income to put into building large collections. We figured that is probably an audience that has fairly high powered devices to engage in that media in other forms. So that was part of that thinking as well. But we also agree about the accessibility of mobile and certainly the reach that it provides. But there's still 1.3 billion PCs in the world, so it's not like that's a small audience on its own.
No, for sure not. But you know, you look at NFT growth and just the collectible craze that I think we're going to see in the next bull run and bull runs after this. People are going to get back into NFTs, and you're going to see emerging countries. This might be their gateway onto the NFT market is through a mobile app. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, I want to get into the roadmap rundown, and I want to start with Bruno on RMRK. Obviously, Polygon has jumped in. You've got other potentials here that could play into this, both Solana, Avalanche. First of all, what does that roadmap look like? You know, could maybe Sandbox run in here? What's the opportunity?
So we've launched on Polygon just last night. So that's live now. We also have Moonbeam and Ethereum mainnet. We will be supporting every EVM chain that looks interesting and it has some users. So we want to spread this technology as far and wide as possible, especially interesting because, you know, Singular is the only NFT marketplace, general purpose marketplace that has GBM auctions built in. That's the bid to earn model where this becomes very appealing very fast because these auctions are incredibly effective. In terms of, you know, other chains, we don't really know the priority list yet. So we'll see what the community votes for, where we might, you know, get a grant or some sort to offset the infra cost or whatever. But in general, we want to spread as far and wide as possible. Sandbox would actually benefit tremendously from our technology. It would solve many of their problems. So we would absolutely love to chat with them about this and how to make their lives easier and their users' lives easier. And basically for everybody to make more money, because it is truly, you know, like tailor-made for these use cases.
Exactly.
We do hope to onboard a bunch of other projects as well who, you know, rather than airdrop NFTs into people's accounts and then causing a disjoint experience where people can, you know, lose the connection between their airdrop and the original and so on, you can actually airdrop stuff into people's NFTs. And if you want to give them alternative art, like, you know, a doodle that is also optimized for a PFP, you can just do that as a different asset on the same NFT. So all of this is really quite tailor-made for all the problems that NFT collections have today, and we would love to help as many of them as possible just upgrade. There is no reason not to, because we are backwards compatible with these standards, with 721, so it does work. It's a bit hard to communicate across because it does so much. But we are here to help. You know, we want to help. We want to explain things, and we would love to partner up with as many projects as possible for the greater good of the NFT
Bruno,
ecosystem.
I'm on the Singular app. You know, and first of all, for many of you viewers, listeners, if you're listening on the podcast side, make sure and get onto the YouTube channel. If you're watching this now on YouTube, and we're looking at this screen right here, basically the Singular beta, but you see it there. Obviously launched on Ethereum, now Polygon, and kind of this ability to really get into this next level of NFTs. Here's my question to you, Bruno. Could this be used as a white label in any way for brands that might be looking to expand, you know, whole infrastructures around verticals in business of all types, film, music, you could name it. What's the possibility there?
Yes, absolutely. So Singular does have a white label option on the way, which will allow you to basically constrain the stuff that's on the page for people to a specific collection, so that projects can just show their own stuff. So like a bespoke marketplace for them and their collection only, but it will still remain compatible with the remainder of the of the other collections in the ecosystem.
So Trevor, we're going to go to the roadmap here. This is kind of the lineup here, but I want to give you, a chance to kind of give us an idea, first of all, on, before we get into about new drops and things like that, but AR, VR. Talk to me about that. What does that look like for McFarlane?
Everybody's favorite platform. I think AR, VR oh yeah, there we go. That was my nice little memeing post where I put the Apple Vision Pro. I mean, I have it in my profile everywhere. I think it's a very cool technology. I really want to get my hands on a dev kit for them when they come out, as they're available. We love that. Well, what I love about AR, VR is really the immersiveness that platform can provide more than anything else. The question for us always comes back to, is the install base going to be there for us to commit those resources to it now? Like, for example, right now, I would say the number one platform that we need to build for, and frankly, our first priority is the mobile platforms. Actually, backing up even from that, our very number one priority is like fixing issues on like promised features in the app vis-a-vis the Discord issue that we were talking about. We want to make sure that we're delivering, always delivering on the promise that we made first, before we start unpacking and delivering more features and more on that side. So with respect to coming to different platforms, for me, the priority is going to be which ones are the ones that are going to, we think, lead to the best outcomes for the product. So in terms of bringing in new users, keeping the users that we have more engaged, generally increasing the accessibility of the platform. I think mobile is the number one choice for that right now. And then after that, I would honestly say that this is kind of one people forget about, is actually the kind of TV platforms, thinking about a living room, Xbox, PlayStation. Those are platforms that we like. We think it caters to our particular product pretty well because, again, high-end rendering platforms, it's something that millions of people already have in their house. It's actually an even bigger install base than any VR platforms that are out there. And so that's another platform that I think we're excited about. But again, at that point, we're basically comparing these are both high-end immersive platforms that are really going to deliver like a quality experience with your collectibles. What is the one that the audience is most excited for? And if we think that because being in VR on the Apple Vision Pro or like Quest or any of those other platforms is going to get more of the audience excited and they're going to be more engaged that way, that will become the priority. For us, it's very outcome driven in that sense.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to see a lot of really new use case scenarios that play into this for collectibles in general. The stuff that a lot of people don't even realize that's going to happen in the next few years in a big way. So I agree with you. Again, just back to the drop mention, we've got year 2 coming up here on the 27th. So that's a big deal for McFarlane. So congrats to you guys on getting this rolling out. Last question to both of you. I'll flip back over to Bruno. And Bruno, biggest challenge right now in being able to really move forward with kind of NFT 2.0, in your opinion, what is facing us today as the biggest challenge?
Explaining a technology that does everything. It's very difficult to get to the end users. And the end users have been scared away by the bear market, by and large. Yeah. So the few that remain are very skeptical in general, but also kind of burnt out and not too interested in processing really complicated things. So we try to make it simpler. We are really trying hard to kind of get a simpler message across, build demos and show people these demos, like the on-chain emote functionality that we've created. We can just put emotes on any NFT. That's fairly easy to kind of demonstrate and to show people as something interesting. So the biggest challenge for us right now is just the fact that there's a severe lack of users. and well, lots of apathy. So it takes a good kick to get people interested. Once they figure it out, then it works. But for most people, the decentralization just doesn't matter that much. So we are kind of on an uphill battle here, where my idealism tells me to tell them about the decentralized nature of NFTs 2.0. But maybe that's the wrong marketing approach. So we're still working on it.
Well, I don't know. I think even collecting in general is, you almost need that kind of the kickstart to get it going. But once a collector starts, then it becomes a passion, and all of that. So it is a unique thing. I know for me, I collect certain aspects of both digital NFTs, but also physical. And I wasn't into collecting. And, I've got 2 young children. My son, he's starting to get into this. And I realized there's just so much more fun to get into these communities and find so much about. So I think there's an opportunity here for both on the NFT side, just the functionality of better NFTs, much better. But, from a standpoint of just collecting in general. How about you, Trevor? What do you think in terms of McFarlane? You guys are doing so much. What's the big bullseye right now that's on your bulletin board there?
I mean, for us, the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity is physical collectors. We are just to put it into context, our physical toy audience is probably 5 to 10 times the size of the entire digital collecting audience across all digital chains. There's just the sheer number of toys, the sheer number, our presence in all the retailers, the sheer number of toys we're selling on the physical side each year. It dwarfs that. So that obviously right there is a huge opportunity. How you get that audience involved is obviously the big challenge of this platform. And then there's also kind of and then there's other elements of okay, how do we bring those people across? Again, how do you convince them of the value of the space and accessibility, quality, just giving them assets so they have a place to get started and then letting them get exposed to the ecosystem that way. All that stuff needs to happen, but it's time consuming, it's expensive. And though we're in it for the long haul. I mean, McFarlane is pretty committed to the space and excited to be in the space. So we see the opportunity here, but we also recognize the difficulty that lies ahead of us, and and there's so many ways for us to solve it on the content side, on the platform, on the tech side. All those things need to come together to create that value proposition to those new users.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're hitting on so many good points there, because that is really the challenges that we are seeing. Back to Bruno, what you mentioned, very compelling there, because it is one of those things that I think we'll start seeing maybe some changes here as the bull market starts to move in, and not only new Web3 natives start to find their way, but digital collectors starting to become a real thing, other than just guys buying NFTs, which is kind of what the last bull market was. So Bruno and Trevor, thank you so much for stopping in today. We appreciate both your time. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. You guys are tuned in on the podcast side of things. Jump over to the YouTube channel. It's where you're going to get a chance to see all this great visuals that we just did on this episode. And it's really a deep dive on where NFT 2.0 is going. So make sure and check in there. And of course, if you're not in our Diamond Circle, get in. It's easy. It's free. Catch me out there on X. We'll catch you there. And it's @Paul Barron right here next time on TechPath.